Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're here with the Warriors of Chaos and Sigvald the Magnificent, going to be facing up against the Dark Elves. I like Sigvald quite a bit in this matchup because he's very durable, very hard to goon. Let's go ahead and put it in slow motion while we take a look at the armies here. He's immune to psychology, he has expert charge defense, as well as the auric armor, gives him regeneration. Great combat stats, doesn't have great armor piercing damage, but 100 armor and, bronze shield makes him very tough to kill. For the main line of my force here, we've got a mix of Chaos Marauders with great weapons, a nice cheap armor piercing option. We've also got some Chosen, who will pretty much mop the floor with anything below Harganeth Executioners in terms of Dark Elf Infantry. Very durable as well with 120 armor, great missile block chance, so they're pretty good against Dark Shards as well. We've also got 2 units of Chaos Warriors. Same idea here, just a cheaper option. These guys will struggle a little bit more with some of the Dark Elf Infantry, but they're still very strong at 100 armor, 34 melee attack, 44 melee defense, and 36 weapon strength. We've got 1 Forsaken on each flank for some fast flanking action. We've also got 1 unit of Chaos Knights with Lances. This is one of the strongest heavy cavalry units in the game at an 80 charge bonus. They also cause fear, a great sustained combat stats, 120 armor, very strong units. They are very expensive though, so I'll have to be careful of that. They're supporting this Chaos Sorcerer Lore of Death here. Very strong pick against the Dark Elves once again. Fate of Buna is excellent against elite infantry. Soul Blight helps these non-armor piercing, Chosen and Chaos Warriors potentially trade with the more armored Dark Elf infantry. And Spirit Leech is great for taking down enemy lords and heroes. So these guys are going to be able to help protect Sigvald on the ground. If my opponent decides to bring Malekith, which he's brought on Seraphon, down to try and goon Sigvald, Sigvald will be pretty tanky. He can stand in the pocket for a while and take some hits, while the Chaos Knights with Lances and the Chaos Sorcerer Lore of Death can potentially do some damage. We've also got 2 units of Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. I'm a huge fan of these guys in any matchup where you're going to see large armored flying monsters or large armored monsters in general. They're very strong against the lizardmen, all variants of elves, and yeah, just they do great armor piercing damage, very fast, can reposition and get into the right location. They are somewhat squishy. I mean, they do have a small missile block chance with a bronze shield, but it's not anything too substantial, but their speed allows them to kind of get out of dodge fast if they need to. And against Dark Shards who have relatively short range, they can quickly reposition and try and stay out of range of these guys, not take too much damage from them. For my opponent's force, he's got a very cheap infantry line overall. This 1 unit of Harganeth Executioners here in the center is his sole elite infantry choice. He's got 2 units of Black Ark Corsairs, and then lots of Bleak Swords, 4 Bleak Swords, and 4 Dread Spears with 3 Dark Shards. So definitely looking to get his killing power out of these Dark Shards here, who are a very strong unit. If I had brought, for example, a Great Weapon build, I'd be in big trouble against all these Dark Shards because they would just be able to fire in with impunity and do a ton of armor-piercing damage. It's also got 1 unit of Harpies just to help support Malekith in the air potentially, or tie up charges of other units. 1 unit of Dark Riders as well out on each flank. Relatively cheap, don't have a lot of armor piercing, but I guess these guys are here to mostly counter Hounds and Marauder Horsemen. Right now they're swinging way out wide on this flank, but we'll see where they get off to. Let's go ahead and kick things into full gear and watch what happens. So I see Malekith's coming over here, potentially going to be trying to do some Dragon Breaths on these Chosen here, so I'm going to be repositioning my my Marauders here. Now it's going to be risky to take any kind of engagement in this space here because of the Dark Shards online. If they are able to fire in here onto, my Chaos Knights with Lances or any of these other units, they're going to be able to do a lot of damage. So seeing that they're starting to get a little bit out of position, I'm going to bring my Chaos Knights with Lances just to pressure them back, and my opponent's responding very well, bringing up these Dread Spears here, so I'm going to pull back away. But at this point my opponent has clicked an attack order from Malekith, I believe on the Death Sorcerer here. He's just trying to goon him out and finish off my magic before I can do too much damage. But the Dark Shards have now pulled back to where they're out of range. Malekith's going to be coming down into combat here, which is a huge mistake. I've dropped a Spirit Leech on him, and he's going to be landing basically right on top of my Chosen. I'm going to immediately countercharge with the Chaos Knights with Lances. We're bringing Sigvald over as well. You can see he's running over, quite excited about the prospect of things. Repositioning my Marauder Horsemen out front so that as Malekith runs through. He's going to take a ton of armor-piercing damage, and just watch his health plummet as these volleys of throwing axes come in. Chaos Knights with lances are keeping him pinned on the ground. He's having a really hard time getting back up in the air. Going to be dropping a Blade Wind there, but has already taken over half his HP and damage. This is a really bad engagement to start for my opponent. We're going to be dropping another Spirit Leech on him since it's already off cooldown here. We have now strayed into the range of the Dark Shards, and look at the damage they're able to put down on those Chaos Knights with lances. But I'm perfectly willing to sacrifice a unit that costs 1500 to take out a Lord that potentially costs, you know, 2500 plus. It's a perfectly even trade in my opinion, so we're able to just about finish off Malekith here. He's actually routed off already before the battle's even mostly underway. Now though, my Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes taking some mean fire from those Dark Shards. They're not going to like that too much. Just wanted to desperately try and get a few volleys here to finish off Malekith, but he's not quite dead, so we're going to try and reposition these guys outside. One of them is going to break off, but now the infantry corps is running up. We haven't taken too much damage from the Dark Shards on my infantry, so that's okay. Chaos Knights with lances have taken quite a bit of damage, but they haven't quite routed off yet. Let's go ahead and watch this charge here as these Chaos Warriors get in here to the Dread Spears. We've also got Forsaken and Harpies mixed up in here. Very chaotic fight, as is thematic, of course, for Chaos. And over here on this flank, these Chosen have gotten into the Black Ark Corsairs, and although Black Ark Corsairs are an anti-infantry unit, they just do not have the raw stats to stand up to Chosen. They're going to get absolutely mopped by these guys. You can see the Chosen taking almost no damage there and easily routing off the Black Ark Corsairs. So this is why I bring Chosen. Anything below Hargoneth Executioners is going to get punished by them pretty bad. Speaking of which, these Hargoneth Executioners are currently taking a Fate of Buna over here. They're trying desperately to chase after this other unit of Chosen, of which they will do very well against. But that doesn't mean they're kind of taking rear attacks from these Marauders with great weapons here. And we have dropped a Soul Blight on them as well, which has sundered their armor, and they actually have routed off. So we've defeated this one high-value unit that my opponent had. Now the only killing power he has left is with these Dark Shards for the most part. Malekith has come back from routing, but he's only got about 500 HP. My Death Sorcerer is still online here, going to be repositioning to get some Spirit Leeches off. A beautiful Dragon Breath there by Malekith, able to do quite a bit of damage to those otherwise healthy Chosen, but there the Spirit Leech is coming down, and Malekith's going to come down into combat, get 1 or 2 attacks on this this Death Sorcerer here, and then promptly keel over from the Spirit Leech. So bye-bye Malekith. It's a huge blow to the balance of power. You can see it's already in my favor here. Sigvald's over here with his Chosen supporting against these Black Ark Corsairs, who are going to get routed off here. Unfortunately, my Chosen are taking some nasty fire from those Dark Shards straight in their back. My opponent's still got this very healthy core of cheap infantry here with which to protect his Dark Shards, and most of my units are kind of scattered across the battlefield. This Forsaken was tangled up with the unit of one of the Dark Riders, was able to defeat them, but then I, dropped their attack order, and I wasn't able to micro them any further. My lack of micro showing a little bit there, but we also got these Forsaken and Marauder Horsemen coming back in, just trying to disrupt this pocket as much as possible while we chase off these 2 units of Black Ark Corsairs here, and other units going to be fleeing through the jungle here as they run away from these Chaos Warriors. This one very healthy unit of Chaos Warriors and almost full unit of Chosen is going to be very hard for my opponent to deal with. If I continue to whittle away at these cheap infantry here with my Sorcerer and with these regrouped Chaos Warriors, they're going to be taking some nasty Dark Shard fire here. But, they'll still be able to get some work done against these cheap infantry, and of course the Dark Shards will get a little bit of friendly fire here, hopefully. But definitely not a super even trade for me. But Sigvald being surrounded by opposing unit models is going to make him pretty hard to hit. Of course, his regeneration and splash attacks means that he's going to take very little damage from these cheap infantry. Can probably finish off most of the infantry that are left here by himself. But my opponent doing a good job now surrounding my Death Sorcerer here. I thought these were actually spears, but they're actually just bleak swords. They're not going to be able to do a ton of damage against him, but they will be able to finish off this very tattered unit of Chaos Knights with lances. Only 151 hit points, just trying to do a little bit of damage here, get some last value before they rout off. Again, units just regrouping and countercharging in from this angle here. And we also have regrouped this Chaos Marauder here, getting into these Dread Spears. Just all over the battlefield, these kind of little pockets of engagements here. It's really favoring me at this point because one-on-one these units can't stand with my units. Granted, the Chaos Marauders actually won't trade super well with cheaper units like Dread Spears. They're more meant against armored units like the You know, Hargoneth Executioners, although Hargoneth Executioners will absolutely trash them, they'll trade a little bit more cost effectively than a standard Marauder variant, although there is an argument to be made for the Sword and Board Marauders here. They would have done a little bit better, I think, against these cheaper infantry, but you can see now that these guys are pretty much routed off the battlefield. We're going to be regrouping these Chosen and these Forsaken and Chaos Warriors, bringing them back over towards the main fight here. They are very slow, though, so it'll take some time. Well, I guess the Forsaken are quite fast, but they're getting a little tired. But the Death Sorcerer is being routed off now, but he's already pretty much got his value with that one Fate of unit and the Spirit Leeches on Malekith. Sigvald just continuing to tank it out here. My opponent's just continually repositioning to try and get his Dark Shards with an open line of fire on Sigvald, and they will do quite a bit of damage if he's got his back faced towards them especially, but whereas he's charging forward with his shield up, that's going to mitigate a little bit of this missile fire, and of course his regeneration will help him heal away the damage that's being done here. So Sigvald charging into these Dark Shards here, definitely loving every minute of it, no doubt having the time of his life in this battle, as a Prince of Slaanesh, no doubt. And I feel it's kind of fitting that you would bring Sigvald against the Dark Elves, considering their proclivity for Slaaneshi type things, you know, being Dark Elves and all. They're definitely Slaanesh and the Dark Elves and Sigvald, of course, all very much enjoy sharp, pointy, you know, kind of edgelord things and doing naughty things. So they're, you know, it's all a good time at the end of the day. These Forsaken are getting into these Bleak Swords here and the Harpies, just trying to finish them off and spring loose my Chaos Sorcerer here. Don't want to completely lose him, but just cleaning up the rest of these cheap infantry here, trying to force army losses at this point, honestly. Sigvald's just running around here being shot, and no doubt still enjoying every minute of it. But yeah, at this point, army losses is going to hit for my opponent relatively soon. These Dark Shards, though, they've done quite a bit of damage, and you can see the burst potential they have for something against like Kolek. That's why I don't really like Kolek in this matchup. Big Bird can potentially be good, but he's a little bit weak to get him gooned by Malekith in melee. You know, you're going to have a little bit harder time protecting him than Sigvald, just because Sigvald is, you know, the regeneration really makes him extra durable, and of course, you know, he's a smaller target as well, has a smaller hitbox, so he's got all that going for him. Really like him in this matchup. I'm not sure about the lore. You guys will have to let me know, those of you who know more about the lore. I'm not huge into the lore of Warhammer, but let's go ahead and take a look at the army breakdown here. You'll have to let me know if Sigvald is, you know, lore appropriate in this matchup. But in terms of the army breakdown here, Forsaken getting a lot of kills against cheap infantry, as you would expect. Dread Spears and Bleak Swords are not going to be able to stand up to Forsaken. Chosen as well, 102 kills against Black Ark Corsairs is pretty decent, considering that unit costs 600. They're very cost-effective infantry in general. I really like Black Ark Corsairs, but they get crushed by Chosen, absolutely crushed. Chaos Knights with Lances were sacrificed to take Malekith down, but that was a worthy sacrifice, definitely. Those Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes and the Death Sorcerer there coming in clutch and taking him down. That's a huge investment for my opponent, and him going down early in the battle was a big loss. These Chosen here got shot up pretty well by the Dark Shards, and my opponent did a really good job of keeping these Dark Shards secure and just doing perpetual damage. You know, one of my units of Chaos Warriors, one of my units of Chosen got completely destroyed by them. The Chaos Marauders with great weapons did okay. You know, they're alright. I might bring the Sword and Board variant here, but I'll have to do a little bit more playtesting in this matchup to see who I really prefer. Sword and Board Chaos Warriors did very well for themselves, as well as the Chosen. I really like those guys here. And yeah, overall, I quite like this army composition. Might require a little bit of fine-tuning, but for my opponent, I really like his build as well. Just using the mass of Dark Elf Infantry, because usually in this matchup, you'll expect a lot of, you know, Hargoneth Executioners, maybe Blackguard. This is kind of a counter meta pick, and I quite like it in that you can do a lot of armor-piercing damage with the Dark Shards, and just all the unit models here that you're able to throw at your opponent means you're going to be able to keep these guys relatively secure. My opponent did a very good job of doing that, just wasn't quite enough in the end. Losing Malekith was a pretty decisive blow there, so well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.